Welcome back, Rockstars. Today's guest is Corwin Smith. And guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be an emotional one for me. I didn't cry during the episode. I might cry during the intro. I always film these things afterwards. Corwin was one of my favorite coaches. He did some very special things with our team. He's responsible in a big way for unifying our company. The time that we spent with him, I'll say it in the episode, was sacred. And that sounds like overly dramatic and cheesy, and I get that, but it is what it is. When you suffer as much as you do as a business owner, especially in private practice, you hold on to those times where it all becomes worth it. His efforts and the way that he was able to work with our team is something that he's going to talk about in today's episode. So listen closely to the pitfalls as to why some companies never become successful or stay stuck. Listen very closely to his experience as a coach of how he invests in people and how he talks about coaching in general, because it's such a generic term, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I get sick and tired of just hearing about coaching this and coaching that, even though I am a coach. It's just a very broad term. And so he gives some specificity to that term for you to help you understand, at least from his perspective, what matters and not. But what's cool is I get to share my experience of exiting. And that's very special to me. So I'm grateful that I get to share this moment with you in today's episode as Corwin steps in and teaches us all about business. Enjoy the show. Corwin, man. So listen, this has been a big question for me that I would love to pick your brain on. Why do you think companies fail to grow?
It's something I've watched, from growing my previous company, and then I've just clipped over 9 years in a coaching role. I think there's two major constraints why companies fail to grow. So the first constraint, it really comes down to the leader, right? As goes the leader, goes the team. And some of the barriers that leaders run into, number one I've found is leaders lack proper ambition. So they commonly, when people hear the word ambition, I think there's kind of a negative bent with ambition today. And when I think about ambition, which is what's my personal why or purpose for what I'm doing, right? And so what I've noticed with leaders that are just kind of stuck, they stagnate, maybe they get to some moderate level of success, and then they kind of stall. What I found talking to them is when I ask them, what is the purpose for you working? Sometimes they have some kind of purpose centered around maybe doing something positive in the world, which is cool, but they're not really clear about why they're working, which is really simple for me, at least. Fundamentally is to earn, save, and invest enough to take care of and live a good life now, but also to fund my 25 to 30 years of unemployment, aka retirement.
Wow.
Yeah.
So specific.
Right. So the way I look at it is I have a really practical or pragmatic or fundamental purpose for working, which is about earning and saving and investing enough, right? I have a big, financial gap still to close. Number one. And then number two is a certain level of impact or difference I want to make in the world. So there's that piece of it, which is really driven by the founder or the senior leader of the company, is the reason why companies I found fail to grow. And then the second thing is the inability to find, hire, and retain enough of the right people.
Amen. Every single PT, OT, and SLP owner right now is going, you can say that again. Because they're struggling right now to find talent. But I love how you simply put that the barriers to growth are the individual leader, both in terms of clarity on their purpose, as well as I love that ambition piece, misguided ambition. You might have a therapy owner, for example, who loves to treat, and they're ambitious about that, but they're not ambitious about growing the core business. And then on the other hand, it's growing the people and the team around it.
Totally. Yeah. And so what's interesting is I've been developing this with clients and even inside of my own business here with the team I have, is getting clients or business owners first clear on what their ambition is, and then their financial ambition, which is the simplest. It's a math equation, and then having them work with at least their senior leaders on what the senior leader's financial ambition is, because number one, it's really sobering from a financial perspective, how big the gaps are for people. And then number two is like it's just forefront and in front of you about how you need to work, and helps me and helps others I've noticed orient in like the kind of work they need to be doing.
I love that. When we worked together, one of my favorite things that you did, using a combination of a couple of coaching programs, like there was the Gazelles thing that Vern Harnish created, the author of the book Scaling Up, for those who know. But then you also have like the Wake Up Warrior kind of influence, and you bring together from your own coaching background, having owned and operated and successfully sold this massive restoration company, but you bring these elements in a way that engaged my team. That's what I remember. Is I had 4 locations when we started working together, and it was, I don't know, there was something about like me developing myself as a leader, which you said was the first constraint, with my team, like having them in the room so that we were all working together towards creating that, because those were fun days, man.
It was a blast. It was so much fun. I still remember vividly, it might have been our second strategic planning session when we did an evolution with the one-page life plan with your team there. And we had a member of your team that was in more of like an administrative or support role. And I just remember this individual just having tears, being able to realize that by them like fulfilling the commitments inside of the organization, they could actually fulfill on their life goals and like their life vision. It was such like a watershed moment for me as a coach to like see the impact firsthand and watch it with the team, as like the team pulled together. And it's like, hey, this is about more than just like a job or earning money. This is like, like we're going to do the money thing. And like, I can also develop myself as a human being. It's really extraordinary.
Yeah. And it was so powerful because like you were impacted. It was a watershed moment for you, but it was for me as well.
Yeah.
And I will say that those days that we spent, because we would meet with you every quarter, we really leaned into it. Like our team would take that time off. We'd go to dinner the night before we'd meet with you. But those days in retrospect now, Corwin, are sacred for me. They're sacred moments of time when I went from being a business owner who was just running around trying to make things work and being tired and being victimized, to being this member of this like community in my own company. And it was so cool because like, I think, again, I developed in real time as I was developing my leaders with the right coaching. And there was a lot of tactical stuff in those meetings. There was the whole like financial pieces, but there was an art to it as well. I felt like, and I feel like this is true for business, there's an art and a science to it. And that's why I think having that quarterly touch point with you every single 3 months was so vital, because we would be reminded of our purpose, but we'd also like set some financial targets, and then we'd complete cycles. I always wanted to ask you, how did you know how to guide our group? Because like you would help us like pull out priorities, you'd help us find the bigger rocks to move, but you would include everyone. And we never landed on like, you know what I mean? So, sometimes people are just wrong. Like there was many ideas that came up that were not great
just
from
awful,
the group.
Sure.
Mine included. But no one ever felt negated or invalidated either. Like I always wanted to ask you, how did you do that through those meetings?
That's interesting. Good question. It's an opportunity for me to reflect and think about that. I think there's 2 things going in the background, like from a coach's perspective, and kind of what I'm thinking about is like, there's an interesting dynamic at place, because the first dynamic at place is like, I see what's possible for the organization and the team, right? Like I see what they could accomplish. The problem is if it's my vision,
right,
and it's my goals, it's mine. So like there's a really fine balance between like me seeing what's possible for this team and for the organization based on like who they are and what the marketplace looks like and everything I can see there. Balancing that with like, what do they actually want and what can they see?
I see. So you have this ability to see a vision of where to go. And so much so that like the entrepreneur in you almost wants to like guide them there.
Yeah. I want to tell them. Like, hey guys, go here. Like this looks like a massive opportunity, but then it'd be mine.
Yeah. I've done that mistake in coaching since then.
It's hard not to.
Hey, look what, and then they give you all this credit, like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You see something in me that I never would. And then you get that traditional coaching relationship where they're the master and you're the ever, you're the undeveloping sensei versus helping people become their own master. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's interesting that you did that. So you were able to,
they already have
you were
it.
able to pull back and then let people kind of see where people were coming on their own.
Yeah. So like, I'd say like that's number one. And then the second piece is like owning that the process of like identifying like where do we need to go strategically is a messy process. And so giving everyone psychological space because it's an evolving process. Like, it's a process of evolution and evolution of thinking. And so like what I've noticed is if, people feel like, hey, my idea was dumb or it wasn't useful or it was bad or something, like they have any negative judgments about it, it just totally shuts down their moods and it shuts down their ability to think competitively.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's how you guide it. You give them that space to just be there. You try not to push them too far.
Yeah.
What have you've coached so many companies over the years now. We were just talking before that we hit record about one of your companies that hit their 10-year goal in like 3 years.
Yeah, 3.5 years. Yeah.
And you just celebrated that. What do companies like that have that other companies don't?
Mm-hmm. So what was interesting about this company is we kicked off in late 2019 and the founder of the company was in a place where he was in like, I'd say a little bit of personal turmoil. So this is where like the leader comes in and that he couldn't really land on a clear vision himself or a clear BHAG because he needed to settle some stuff like in his personal space. So like he got the stuff settled in his personal space that he needed to and got like grounding there. And then from there, he was like really clear, like, hey, and so 19, and then it was, late 2020, he's like, hey, like, this is the vision where I can see us going. Cause there's a piece of the vision that number one, like the owner or CEO, whoever's in charge has to own it.
Yeah. If
they don't own it, no one's going to. That's right. So like they've got to own it. And like the team has to be bought in and say, hey, like that energizes me, that lights me up. Let's go do this together. So he got to a place where he could own it. So number one was like, we'd already started to build some momentum with the team through, roughly a year and a half of coaching together. So like we'd started to build momentum. So I don't want to ignore that. But number two, what happened is it really just shaped like the executive team and the mid managers like, oh, okay, that's the goal. Like that's where we're going. Their BHAG was roughly two and a half times growth. Now this is a mature company. They had, when we first started the process, they had like maybe 100, 105 employees. And yeah, they achieved their BHAG in just under 3 years.
So Rockstars, as you're listening, BHAG stands for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. It's like the ultimate vision of the company.
You could say. Yeah. And so what was interesting was this company's revenue had been flat for the 2 or 3 years prior.
Yeah.
So like doubling the company in 10 years and it's already a significant company was like, man, that's a big goal. But what's fascinating, like, yeah, it got everyone aligned around like, how do we fulfill on this vision? Number one, it got the owner or the CEO zoomed out and thinking a lot bigger. From a perspective of like, oh, is there acquisitions we can bring in? Like he wasn't looking at that necessarily before. Are there new markets we can play in that we aren't playing in before like that? But they also started to hire people differently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Having been through the transformation myself, it's a collective effort. I think the hard thing about coaches is oftentimes when they're doing their job right and they're not the guy or girl who's like, hey, this is where you could go. And they're the master sensei all the time. The best coaches are the ones that help their clients feel like it's coming from within. It's like they help them tap into themselves. Mm-hmm. But I'm really grateful that I'm smart enough to know that like we wouldn't have done that without you. And
you're sweet.
And I mean this. I won't say it on this. I'll probably do it more in the introduction. But our PT practice, we ended up exiting at this industry record multiple given our size. Like,
breakthrough, man. It was crazy.
And you were there for all of it. Yeah. And we wouldn't have done it without you. I think the main thing that you guys can, and I mean this more for my Rockstars who are listening, is that there's so many different types of coaching. And I would like to hear from you in a minute, like how you would qualify or not qualify, how you would describe your coaching as what it is. Because I've had so many coaches. While we were working with you, we had other types of coaches, but your coaching was this team unifying, big picture creation. safe place where, do you remember when we were talking about the concerns of selling? Like, it was an environment where, because of your conversational domain that you created in that coaching space that one day every quarter, that we're like, let's talk about Will's offer that's coming to sell. And one girl was like, yeah, I think it's a huge mistake. Remember?
Yeah, I remember vividly. Yeah.
Oh, it was so crazy.
What are you doing?
Ugh.
Yeah, but man, what a gift that she felt safe to speak that. And that was a gift that you delivered as a leader, for her to like bring that level of, rigor and I would even say healthy conflict. It was like, well, she didn't say it this way, but I think this is dumb.
Yeah, that was really, and she did it very tactfully, but it was so concrete, but it wasn't done because she felt safe. She didn't do it in a way that could have been so much more painful. Like if she was in a director's meeting offsite, it's like,
totally.
And then all of her anxiety was coming across in judgment, and it freaked other people out because she wasn't freaked out. It was like, no, I think this is a mistake. What we've got here is special.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. And it was special. It was amazing.
I still look back at that and I still can't believe, when I say sacred, I want the Rockstars to hear that I mean it. It was holy. It was special. It was spiritual. It was, and I didn't know it at the time into that degree, but you knew while you were doing it, like, hey, this doesn't feel like work. This feels like I'm creating something bigger than me. And I love these people with me, even if it's just a professional connection. And here we are. And then every quarter you'd see the evolution, and dude, what an evolution. So how would you describe your coaching because dude, that's the other thing I worry about when I'm always talking. Every episode I'm always like, everyone needs a coach, but there's so many different types of coaches. I'm actually leery on recommending coaches. That's why I wanted to bring one of my favorites on. So how would you describe what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Or what you do.
Yeah.
Because how do you put language to it?
Yeah. So like typically what happens is I help business owners and entrepreneurs that know they're after an exit. But specifically, like, it's not an exit in like a year or two. Like, I'm not a broker. I don't do any of that. But what they're looking for is they're looking to scale their business value significantly, right? So, 2 years ago, I finally did a project with, one of my assistants to track, like, we actually went through and captured the financial data. Like, what's the actual verifiable results that our clients produce that work with us? Was it us? No, it wasn't us. Space was created. We had conversations. We coached. They developed strategic plans. And then, whatever happened. On average, doubled their net operating income in 2 to 3 years of working with us. Like on average, some were bigger, some were smaller. Enterprise values grow anywhere from 500 to 800%. Right?
What does that mean, enterprise value?
Business value. Sorry. That's a fancy term.
Yeah. So just like the company was worth.
Term. Yeah.
Like for sale, it became worth that much more. 500 times
or 800 times what it was worth when they started. Like we track this stuff rigorously now. And then like what's less tangible is the quality of life for the owner, because like we only partner with business owners that really deeply care about their people and making a contribution. Because everything we do is about giving people their brains back and empowering people and holding them accountable at the same time. And like this system only works if it's an owner that like actually cares about people and elevating their team. If their only concern is like about what can I extract from my people? How do I, no one says this outright, but like, how do I take advantage of customers or trick them or deceive them or anything like that?
What's the trick or the shortcut to maximizing profitability? Like a tactic?
It's not there. Yeah. It's not there. Like we don't do that. I candidly, I've never worked with private equity firms. I don't know if I could because I'm probably wrong. Like I haven't encountered any yet though that have similar time horizons and, values orientation around the best and highest way to grow companies. And like financial results prove it for itself. Right. But yeah, like making long-term decisions and doing the right thing by people is fundamentally what works. And so, yeah, we work together through a series of strategic planning sessions. Typically we meet quarterly. And like, I think what I have 2 business partners now, but like what we do differently than many other companies is like some companies will train you on new concepts or procedures or things like that. And it's like, hey, here's the training, go out and do it and good luck. And so what we like to say is like, we win between the quarters because we get so hands-on with implementation and integration of the key concepts and tools that like the only way you fail with like the coaching and the concepts and the principles that we train on is you do nothing.
Yeah, you don't
like
try.
You just throw your hands up. Yeah. Like, and so what we've built is like a methodology that's literally fail-proof.
Well, and it's funny because people hearing that are like, wow, that's a bold statement. It's like, I lived it. I got to see it. It was unreal. And what's cool about it is that it's not complicated. It's very, it's at a gradient level that I think anyone, regardless of where they are in their business, could benefit from it. But I do think people have to be bought in. I think the one thing, like you said, not do anything, having gotten into coaching and then gotten out of it after a few years, I realized that like there was no success that I could have that wasn't completely dependent upon their buying in and going all in. Like, again, they don't have to be perfect. I'm not saying that it's like a weight loss coach. It's not like they don't have to like make mistakes, but like if they're not trying to track and not trying to put the effort in.
They got to want it and they got to be willing to stick with it is probably what I'd say. Like, so the client that hit the BHAG in like 2.5 years, like they'd already had momentum build up. And so, some of the core concepts or principles that we work with companies on come from Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great.
Oh, the best.
And Great by Choice. And so he talks about this build up to breakthrough. And that's really what our clients experience is like the willingness to kind of sit in the organizational change, the willingness to have your frontline people or your mid managers say like, I don't know why we're doing meetings this way. I don't know why we're meeting. I don't know why we're talking about Corvette. Like they're going to push back and like, they're going to test you along the way and just trust is like, this is going on. And sometimes you're going to face resistance from the team. Could be your executive team, could be frontlines people that what we're going through is we're going through this buildup where it literally looks like nothing's happening and it's trackable with my clients. It looks like nothing's happening. And all of a sudden they just hockey stick.
Hockey stick. Yeah.
And then, like profits hockey stick, revenue growth hockey sticks. And it's like, well, what happened? And it's like, no, like you missed this whole buildup process that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's foundational growth that oftentimes can be exhausting as an entrepreneur because you're looking for greater freedom, greater profits, but you can still sense it. I mean, I think you'd have to be pretty blind to not feel the shift of energy that's occurring because even though those things haven't occurred yet, you still can sense, wow, this is a good action. Wow, there's less of the drama shift that Bingo. I think is immediate.
Less drama, greater communication, greater cohesion. Yeah, like there's definitely results like that. Like communication,
those are immediate results for sure.
Immediate results, but the big dramatic financial results, they take a little time because it's kind of like we're doing an orthodontic adjustment on the organization, so to speak. And like you don't move teeth overnight. Like it takes a little time. But gosh, your smile's beautiful. And it's like, well, this took 3 years. Like yeah. Like I had braces on for 3 years and it was kind of uncomfortable. And now
that's actually a really good analogy because like you put the braces on, everything looks a little bit worse, right? Because you have braces on and then all of a sudden one day the braces come off.
And there is short-term pain for sure with the coaching. And the only pain that comes is like, we got to change some of our habits. Like I used to not do daily huddles and now I got to be in a daily huddle 4 days a week and, show up with my team. I used to just hire people kind of willy-nilly off the cuff. And now I follow top grading practices to hire people. And it takes more time and it takes more rigor. But gosh, Corwin, like, how did we get these people on our team? And I'm like, yeah, like it's slower. It's a bit more painful, but the results are worth it.
And then they start compounding. I think that's the thing that we forget is, when we're acting out of reactivity in Rockstars, I want you to know I lived in this space where it was like, I was in so much pain. I needed to hire someone hiring is a great example. I was in so much pain. I just needed somebody to fill in because I was dying. Like, it felt like I was, but I really believe I was. Like, no one should work 60 hours a week with that kind of intense patient interaction. And so it makes it to where the idea of like hiring a coach and taking hours out of your day, which are already strapped thin with poor profits, seems insane. But there's a snowballing effect. And the transformation, I remember at the end, just realizing that I was experiencing something rare and that it wasn't something that I'm a big proponent of. Like if I can do it, literally anyone can. but that doesn't mean it's easy either. And like having that idea of like, it was such a special, sacred moment. And then when we exited, the way that felt like first of all the stress and sacrifice worth it, all the pain, all the effort worth it. You and I both know, having successfully sold, that doesn't mean there's not another chapter to start over. And that's a big awakening. Money doesn't solve all problems.
I remember talking about this with you, and I said, watch it, because like it happened for me, and I'd witnessed it with other people that had exited. Is like, you're going to have about one good month.
Yeah.
And then a whole new reality sets in, and like you have a new set of problems. And it's true. Like, more money, more problems, and you do like, you have a whole new set of problems. And you do have a new set of problems. Like for entrepreneurs that I've coached, like one of the things that shows up is like a big identity shift. Like, who am I now?
Yeah. 100%.
Like, I don't have this company and all these employees and like these accomplishments. Like, sure, I did. But today, like, that's gone. So who am I?
It's especially true for healthcare companies, because we're not just business owners. We are physical therapists. We are medical doctors.
You guys are healers. You're healers.
We're healers. And that title, our job title, is synonymous with our last name. Like Will Humphreys PT is still in my mind to some degree who I am.
Yeah.
So when I sell that and I'm no longer treating, who am I? And man, it was disruptive. Even though I didn't have to work for, if I invested correctly, I never had to work again. But dude, there's a reason why these super hyper successful people keep working. It's because money is only one thing.
It's only one thing. Yeah. 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 I think we're meant to work by the sweat of thy brow, right out of the beginning of the Bible there.
Yeah. By the sweat of your brow.
The sweat of your brow, you're going to eat. And it's like, all right, like, love or hate Christianity, love or hate God, and whatever. It's like, look, like there's some diamond truth in the Bible there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been the truth for me. Like, there's a certain gratification in being anxiously engaged in doing good, and busy in doing good. And like you get too much time on your hands, and it's not good. So
let me ask you this. I've been always wanted to ask you, you've helped so many companies, and it's so cool to me that you have physical therapy specific experience, because I don't think that's very common for a lot of coaches who are not specific to PT. Finally, our industry is getting some PT specific coaches, which is fantastic, but it is nice that, like, I will say that overall, not all, there's some PT specific coaches who are the best, but like ultimately the better coaching is outside still, in my opinion. What was it like for you when I sold, or this company hit their 10-year goal in 3.5 years? Like, you've done that type of accomplishment repeatedly. What's that like for you? I've never asked.
Before I got into coaching, I had a mentor that was a senior partner with Deloitte Consulting. Deloitte's one of the largest consulting firms in the world. Man by the name of Bert. And I was talking to Bert, and Bert said, "Hey, like, Corwin, like, cool, you want to get into coaching and consulting." He said, like, "I just would have you consider," and like, he's a really wise dude, very accomplished. He said, like, "I'd have you consider that, like, when you're a consultant rather than an operator, you're a stage mom. And so, like, just asking yourself, are you okay being a stage mom?" I'm like, like, what might that mean to be a stage mom? And so it's interesting, like, when you look at like stage moms, so to speak, or soccer mom or whatever, soccer dad or whatever the thing is, like, they put in a lot of work, they put in a lot of the sweat and the tears, and like, there's not a lot of like outward facing glory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I looked at that and I was like, I'm totally okay with that, because like, when I looked at like my drivers, like motivators, said another way, and like, this is one of the assessments we use in helping our clients hire right, is like, what motivates people at work, and we have a very rigid assessment for it. And my top 4 drivers is not high commanding, which is like really driven by identity. It's just not. So I was like, I'm totally okay internally knowing and celebrating with the team and the owner their accomplishments, and like, I'm not on stage. I'm totally at peace with that. Yeah. And it's just cool. Like, it's amazing to see like the harvest and see everything come together, and to see these clients win in such a big way and the team celebrate such a big win. And then there's a small part of me, like, for instance, when Rise sold,
my physical therapy practice, Rise Rehab.
Yeah. Like, and it transitioned into the new thing. There was a little bit of sadness too, because like, it's candidly, it's never the same.
No.
It's not. And so like, it's a bittersweet in a way, mostly sweet. And there's a little bit of bitter, and like the thing changes. Like the team is going to change, it's going to evolve. It's going to go their separate ways. It's going to be reformed into something else. And like, that's a completion. And almost like, I think I may have told you this. Like there almost needs to be like a funeral service for what was, and like, just like, not like a weird thing, but like a celebration of like what was, and a gratitude and appreciation and a process of closure. Because you're moving into a totally different phase.
You actually suggested that we should have a funeral for Rise.
Yeah, which is totally weird.
Well, no, what's really weird too is so I love that you shared all that. Thanks for sharing, because I kind of get that. And I'm willing to bet that some owners are willing to look back like a stage kid, look over their shoulder and say, thanks, Mom. And some don't.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because like afterwards, it took maybe, that sell happened 6 years ago. It probably took 3 or 4 years of people like stop talking about the old days. Like I'd run into employees who were still working at the new company. They're like, how's it going? No, not as good as Rise. They just start bashing on the old ways and start almost hyper glorifying the old days.
It wasn't that good, guys. I promise. High school wasn't that cool. Yeah.
Totally. It's kind of like being a star high school student. Like it's cool, but like, is it really that amazing. Cool when you're 40 and remembering it like over and over again? So I really appreciate you saying that, because like there was a legitimate phase. What I've learned is that, and you really helped me see this, Corwin, is that it's all hard. Like building it and being successful is hard. Selling is hard. Even with a lot of money, being on the back end of it, starting new without any of the old headaches is hard. Is it different? It's just different. And we get to pick our hard. And I'm always going to pick a hard that is going to create moments like I got to be with you on, where we were in a room with leaders with, in that always that sense of like everything's against you kind of feel, because you're just a bunch of regular people trying to make a difference. And then you start making a difference. And the magic of those moments for me make the hard worthwhile. And I think that it just wouldn't have been the same without you. So listen, Corwin, I want to be with a grateful stage kid and look over my shoulder and say thank you publicly for what you did for us, because it's not a small thing. Yeah. I honestly am trying not to get choked up right now, because that time was so special and you created that for us. And so,
thank you.
Obviously with your PT experience, I'm going to highly validate and recommend anyone who's like, you know what, I might want to work with a coach, that you're their guy. How do people get a hold of you if they just want to ask questions about today's episode, or if they want to learn more about working with you?
Yeah. You can find me on culturetocash.com.
Culture to Cash? I didn't know that. That's a new website. That's so cool.
Yeah. And it was really intentional, because like what we're after is like helping connect like powerful, healthy company culture that elevates people to bottom line profits. So culturetocash.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I don't really post anything, but I'm on there. And I don't know, however you want to reach me. And glad to connect and just even have a conversation. Like if you're in a jam, you got a question, happy to help how I can. Like a big piece of this is about like personal mission and contribution too. So like really honored to help how I can. And especially, those in the healing professions. Like we need our healers to be healthy, really.
Oof.
Yeah.
He gets it, right, guys? Rockstars, healers to be healthy. Who's looking out for us, right? Mm-hmm. That's worth every penny we ever spend investing in that. Makes everything else go right.
Amen.
All right. Well, Corwin, thank you so much for being on the show, buddy. It was so great being with you.
Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Guys, thank you for taking time to listen to today's episode. If you found today's information to be useful, could you take a minute and help me? I would love it if you could leave a podcast review in your app so that other people who are looking for this information can find it. Plus, my dream is to have the largest network of medical entrepreneurs and leaders in the world so that together we can change healthcare to make it better for all. So in addition, if you can think of anyone that you could send this to, not only would that mean a lot to me personally, but it would build this network so that we can make healthcare the way that we want it.